Jay Horowitz with a special edition of Amazing Mets Alumni Podcast. My buddy, Mr. Darryl Strawberry, is here. Darryl, you played on the last two Mets teams who won 100 games, 180 and 86, 188. What's the difference between the regular season and postseason?
Well, that's a good question, Jay. First, it's good to be here with you.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the regular season is a grind. You have to grind it out and everything, and you have to get through the last part of the year, August and September, and you really got to go into the playoffs with a clear head, because when you go into the playoffs, you're going to be facing the best pitchers in the rotation, and you got to be prepared to beat one of them or both of them. You know, it takes a lot. I just remember when we got into the playoffs in '86, and we wasn't going to beat Mike Scott. He was hot, so we had to beat Ryan or the other guy, Nolan. Right. So we had to beat one of those guys to be able to kind of move forward. So, you know, that's the kind of success that can take place. '88, you know, we were better than everybody, and we killed the Dodgers during the regular season.
10 of 11 times.
10 of 11 times, Jay. And they just got hot at the right time, and they beat us in that series. You know, when you think about it, that was the most heartbreaking series for me to ever lose. I took that to heart because, you know, we were such a good team in '88, and we should have been able to, you know, overcome some of the things that we wasn't able to overcome in that postseason.
I think in 2015 we beat the Cubs. The Cubs beat us like 10 or 11 times, and we beat them 4 straight. You know, so if you were telling the Mets team this year is approaching 100 wins, what would you tell guys who've never been in a postseason, like Alonso or McNeil, some of the younger guys? What would you tell them how to prepare for the postseason?
I would just tell them feel great about what you accomplished as the regular season, because that's so important. And, you know, to get through a long season, 6 months, it's a long, hard road. Feel good about yourself, but just know that going into postseason is a game of inches, and you have to come up with big plays, and you have to come up with big hits in situations. And I think that's what young players have to understand. Don't put pressure on yourself. It's still the same thing. It's still the same game. Don't change because of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is different. You know, the fans are loud. Wherever you go, it's going to be different, and you got to be able to play under those kind of situations.
It's good, like Buck Showalter's a veteran of the postseason. It's good to have a veteran guy in control of it once you get there, right? I mean,
well, it's always good to have a manager that understands the importance of being in postseason. When you have had a chance to experience that, I think it's important. And Buck has been able to go through that, you know, in his days of being a manager, and he's done well. He's done well of keeping his group together, you know, even throughout the part of the struggle of a season. He knows that it's a long season, and he knows that postseason is different, and you're going to have to make the plays, and you're going to have to be better than the next guy when you get into postseason.
And the scrutiny from the media gets more intense in the postseason, right? Remember our good friend David Cohn wrote an article for the Daily News how we were going to beat the Dodgers, and then Tommy was sort of wanted to put it in the locker room.
Yeah, he kind of used that for motivation for his ball club, and I think the most important thing is don't get into writing things, don't get into talking about things with the papers. A lot of times papers lead guys to come and share things with them, and I just think it was one big mistake that Coney made. But Coney was a winner. He was tough in that series. You know, he pitched well, and you know, it was just one of those things. When you say things can happen.
And he never ran away from it too. He admitted he made a mistake. Talk about a game mentioned. Everybody talks about Game 6 in '86. For me, the most excruciating game was Game 6 of the playoffs in Houston. 3-0. We're trailing. Neppers pitching great. Nobody wants to face Scott. He might have scuffed up a ball or two, maybe. well, maybe. Who knows? Mike was a good guy, but. Do you remember going into the ninth inning that game? I mean, it was a pretty intense time.
It was a pretty intense ball game, and nobody wanted to go to Game 7. And Davey made a move that nobody would ever think about. You think about who he brought up, Lenny.
He brought Lenny up, yeah.
And Lenny got the rally going.
Right.
You know, and which most people don't realize was so important because lefty against lefty, you just don't do that. But the odds is to get Lenny on base. And that sparked us, because Lenny was always a spark for us, you know. And sometimes you just have those little situations that you need on your ball club to change the situation, and that really changed everything for us in that ball game. And we would come back and tie that ball game up. And you remember we played our tails off, and it was just a phenomenal team that we had all the way around, with players. Every player on the roster played a big part of who we was in that 86 year. Everybody had a piece of the pie, just put it more like that. You sliced the pie up, you had to slice it up for the whole team. It wasn't just about one particular player, two particular players playing on that team.
The Dodgers are great, Braves are great, other teams, but if you look at the Mets' top two guys, DeGrom and Scherzer, Bassett, would you agree that in the postseason, in short series, pitching is
pitching is the key in the short series. Pitching is the key in playoffs. Your number one and your number two starters, if they're lights out, you got a better chance of winning. But you got to remember, other teams are going to be different, and they're going to play different when it comes to playoffs. So, playoffs is a whole different atmosphere. It's a whole different animal of itself. It's a fun place to be, and hopefully these guys, the Mets team, will be able to experience that and not put pressure on themselves, and just remember, it's still baseball.
What do you remember at the crowds at Shea in the World Series?
I love the crowds at Shea. It was the most incredible time, to be a player and be on the field playing, in the playoffs and in the series, and just being able to play in 88 too in the crowds and performing in front of these crowds in Queens, Met fans, is this most incredible feeling that I've ever experienced in my life. And, when I look back, I would always cherish that.
When did you stop playing when was your last year?
My last year was 99, after the 99.
So you didn't play, you left the Mets in 90, right?
Left the Mets in 90.
So you came back from a couple of appearances here, and you still light up a room. You're like the Pied Piper. No, I mean, you still have the it thing, I remember we were walking through the Delta Club, and it was like Peter Pan, walking through. To make you feel good after all these years, you still got it.
It's home, Jay. And I'm a homegrown kid, from the Mets organization, from the minor leagues to the big leagues, and playing those years that I played here. I think when I was reflecting back on it, most people don't know, those were great years of my career. That was the greatest time of me playing Major League Baseball, and it had nothing to do with other places I ended up playing. I played in other places, but to start here and have the kind of career I had here, and the fans and the atmosphere, and just growing up around Queens, it was fun. It was fun playing at Shea Stadium, and it was fun being on all those great teams I was on.
I think the fans love you so much, Darryl. No matter what happened, you never ran from anything. You always faced the music, whether you struck out or some off the field stuff. You never ran. And I think that's what's endeared you to the fans. You've always been the stand-up guy.
Well, that's kind of what life is really all about. I think my mother taught me that no matter what I was going through and what I had to deal with, always remember to stand in front. And that's what it was when I played here. When I had a bad game and when they were booing me, and I was like, I suck right now, and I need to be that. Because it motivated me to keep going. I think when you hide out and blame everybody else, that means you don't take responsibility. So I learned a great deal from my mother to take responsibility of things.
How much of an advantage? I don't have the roster in front of me. Most of the Mets, I don't think any of them have been in the postseason. And the Braves have. They won a championship. If it gets to that point, the Dodgers have. Is that a big factor, do you think? Or
no, you're baseball players. You're just as good as they are. And I always tell myself, once I put the uniform on, I'm the best player on the field. And that's what guys have to remember, to tell themselves. You're the best player. That doesn't mean you're cocky, you're arrogant. It just means you're confident. And you have to be confident in yourself when you get to postseason play, because it's you and against them. Yeah, they have been in this place before, and they've been successful and had a chance to win. The Dodgers have won, the Astros have won, and you look at all the other teams, the Braves have won, and we haven't won. But that doesn't stop you from not winning. You can win too.
When it seems scary, I've known you for 42 years.
I know. Remember that day at Dodger Stadium, right?
It's crazy, man. Hey, listen, it's always a pleasure, Stuart. Thanks for the time.
Good to see you, Jay.
Yeah, good to see you, man, always.